So now I'm recording. Okay, I forgot to do it. I was gonna get in trouble, but I'm not gonna get in trouble because I remembered. But if you type things into the chat, they are recorded, so then people will have an introduction to you a little bit. So I'm seeing some things coming in. So go ahead, turn your chat on. If you haven't tried doing that before, it's at the bottom of your screen. There's a little box that looks like a cartoon talking bubble, and it's called chat, and you click it and it pops up on the right side of your screen, and you can see other people, and you can say who you are and what you do and what's going on with you. And we'll try to turn this thing around as quick as we can because everybody's had a long day. So we will try to go as quick as we can. While we're waiting and seeing who else is going to join us, does anybody have any questions? I know it's been a little bit of an adventure getting started.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Kate also? Yes. Like me?
I had a question. I've been checking to make sure things have been getting completed, and then I have two assignments that it says not completed even though I've completed them. One is that instructor profile. So I'm supposed to put that in my sandbox, correct?
So the profile is one of those generalized things that once you create it anywhere in Brightspace, it will populate anywhere else you are in Brightspace.
So I completed it, but it's still coming up as not completed.
So what I've been doing with the profiles is I've been grading them about every 12 hours. So if you completed it today, I was at the conference, I may not have quite rounded on it yet.
Okay.
The way that I'm grading the profile, and I posted it to the announcements also, is I'm checking for two things. One is, do you have an image? It doesn't have to be a photo of you. It can just be whatever image you find meaningful to share with students. And then the second thing I'm checking is, have you populated at least some of the field with information that may be appealing to students? That doesn't mean that you have to bare your soul in a confessional style narrative, but it does mean that you cannot just say, I teach English over and over again. You need to say something that will sound like you're attempting to commit and communicate. Yes, Ines, you had a thought?
I was going to say, I think I have a grade for it, but it's not checked off as completed.
So yes, that's happening with a bunch of assignments. Thank you, Ines, for bringing that up. That's happening with a bunch of assignments. The reason for that is that when assignments are created as pass-fail, there's no way to link the assignment to the gradebook. So I've been grading it directly to the gradebook. So it may never come up as completed inside the assignment because I'm just posting a grade for it. But as long as you have a grade, if you go to the grades tab in the course and you check your grade, as long as your grade is pass, that means that you've done everything you were supposed to do. Okay. While we're on the topic, and thank you for bringing that up, it was on my list of things. So while we're on the topic, we had an interesting conversation about profiles in the last meeting with Trish and the group that gathered there. And I just wanted to remind people that when we post our profiles, it is meant to honestly communicate something about ourselves, but it's also a representation of something we're trying to teach. And so, for example, if you have 20 favorite books and 10 of them were written by the same kind of person, let's say an 18th century British white man, maybe look through the other 10 and see if you can dig up a woman or a person of color or somebody else so the students recognize themselves. Which is not to say misrepresent what you actually like. You should definitely represent what you truly and honestly like, but just see whether or not you can make that as open and as welcoming and as inclusive of as many of your students as you could. And people are doing a great job of that. So it's not that I'm complaining, it's just a quick reminder. Thank you for that question. Another thing that I was supposed to bring up yesterday when we rolled out the class because it's not a class Trish and I designed. It's a class that's being taught over and over again by different instructors. So it's the same shell that's being repeated by a number of people. There were some dates that populated incorrectly into the course. And so yesterday we spent a little bit of time chasing down all the incorrect dates. All the dates are now correct. So if you look under the assignment tab, you will get all the dates correctly and in the correct order. The only date that's not under assignments is for that first discussion from the MagnaPub training that you can take and then respond to under the discussion. And we will be grading those pretty shortly. There are many other discussions, but they don't have a particular due date. We just want you to continue talking to each other. Are there any other questions that we can address?
Yeah, because they don't have listed yet who is teaching, the video classes, because we just hired a new person. Am I right in the fact that, every time I tried to go in, the instructions were very clear, and I really thought they were simple, but every time I tried to add a file, it wouldn't let me click on anything that would open anything. Then I ended up going, because I went to the, where it said, the listing of the class. Then I went back over to like the sandbox and let me do it. But now I can't figure out what, because the sandbox doesn't end up having the stuff that the other one ends up having. So therefore, how do I know when it has taken something or that I've done it or that it's there? Or, I have no idea what I've got done and what I don't have done.
The easiest thing to do it is to do everything in the sandbox, because everything that is in the sandbox is copyable. So you are able to select any component from any course that you have access to in Brightspace and copy it into any other course you have access to in Brightspace.
I don't. Because there was nothing in them.
Well, and what I'm saying is this is a long game that you're playing. So if you right now just do everything in the sandbox for right now and don't worry about the other courses, when the courses are assigned and put in your name closer to fall, sometimes way closer to fall, you'll be able to copy all your work into them. And I think the safest way to make sure that you have access to everything and that nothing disappears from you is to play in that sandbox until you're sure which courses will be yours.
Okay, because there were some things that were not in the sandbox that were in the other one, like reading, and I ended up doing that, but then that one let me end up making responses to it. But then when it ended up putting files, it wouldn't let me do anything, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I fought that up until 11:30 last night, and then I got up this morning. I was like, wait a minute. What happens if I go to the sandbox rather than going to the other? Because, and then when it did it, it said file and it ended up taking it. I was like, oh, okay. But then I don't know whether, then it's like, okay, then I feel like I'm going from the one to find out what I'm supposed to do. And then I go back to the other one. Is that what I should be doing? Or
given that it's your specific challenge that you're addressing, I think the best way to do it is to make a time for either me or Trish or Royce or Stephanie to look over it with you to make sure that we know where things are going. So Trish and I are really easy to reach on Teams, and Royce and Stephanie are fantastically easy to schedule on. If you go to Brightspace, to like your big main page, they have a big note on the right side that says if you need one-on-one help, click here. And they have a little calendar you can schedule. And that way, instead of having to try to describe verbally what's happening with you, you can just share a screen with someone and they can walk you through what's going on.
Because I do into the chat thing and ended up sending an email, but then when I went back, I couldn't even see the message that I'd sent. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wait until tonight and talk to you.
I think the best choice, Ella, is pick the person you're most comfortable with. I personally recommend Royce and Stephanie because they're experts in Brightspace. But if you feel more comfortable with me and Trish, we're delighted to assist, and make a one-on-one appointment and let's just party a little.
You don't want to deal with those video people. Yeah, everybody else does. No. I know, we're weird.
Inez, I saw you opening your mouth like you had an answer for Ella. No? Okay. Because everything I learned about Brightspace originally, I learned from Inez. So I look at her. She was my original boss.
The only thing I was going to say is I think, Ella, that it was just going to be a long explanation, but if you're going to deal with Trish and Royce and Stephanie, you're much better off with them.
Yeah, my experience has been that when it comes to Brightspace and the fidgety little bits that you have to figure out, the easiest thing to do is pick a person you trust, make an appointment, share a screen, and then we could just walk through it rather than trying to verbally describe exactly where things may have gone missing. It's a lot easier to look and click on things than to talk.
I thought it probably would be, but I thought I'd ask before I ended up doing it, because it was like, okay, am I even all the stuff that I've entered, have I entered it? The other thing I thought was interesting is that with making the modules, I ended up putting it, they didn't necessarily go in the order that I put them. Can you change the order?
Absolutely. There's a little box that looks like 6 little squares or maybe 8 little squares sitting on top of each other, and you can drag things using that tool. And that's something, if you make a list of questions about Brightspace, you can definitely make an appointment with Royce or Stephanie, and they can give you a tutorial on each of those tools. There's also Brightspace tutorials on Google. You can literally Google, how do I, whatever it is, in Brightspace, and watch a little video.
Oh, I did that, and it ended up being not any clearer than what you guys did, but it still wouldn't let me do it because I was in the class thing and not in the sandbox. But I didn't, nobody told me that. Told me that I didn't know that I couldn't end up doing it there. And so finally, I just ended up, because I just kept playing, and then finally, when that let me do it, I was like, oh, it must be that I can end up going there, but I can't go in the other one. Maybe that's because the fact that the classes aren't assigned. But I mean, I just did that by trial and error.
If your name is not on a class, you cannot manipulate any of the material in the class because it's not your property. It will not let you do anything.
But I didn't know that.
Well,
I do know.
And this is the purpose of this course. Many of us are starting this stuff for the first time, or delving as deep as we are for the first time. And so this is an opportunity to make basically painless mistakes. Like, yes, they're painful, but we're not impacting students. We're just messing around. And so if something goes horribly wrong, we just fix it. And it's not an enormous deal right now.
Well, like I said, I just kept poking.
That's the best way. You just poke till something comes up. All righty. Any other questions before we keep right on trucking? All right, then the question came up in the discussion that we were really, really interested in, and I just wanted to throw it out there and see what people think. And the question was, right now the assignment is asking you to make a schedule of your course as if it were an on-ground course with a 15-week layout where you have a plan for each chronological week. Some people are suggesting that given that we're now in an online space, we don't have to do that, and that we might want to organize our courses thematically rather than chronologically. And clearly for different people, different things work better. But we wanted to throw it out there and see how people prefer their own courses organized, what they think might be the best for the particular discipline you're in.
I think it makes a difference in the discipline and how you handle it.
What do you think for videography?
Sorry.
I was asking you, Miss Ella, what do you think for videography? Would it work better chronologically?
I did the schedule for 15 weeks, but then I've got them. There are certain dates that I want them to end up having talked to a client. There are certain dates that I want them to have their questions ready. I want them to end up that, do the pre-production work, and then the dates that they're going to end up shooting, and then dates that they're going to end up using for editing purposes, and then when the rough cut is due to me, and then when the final project is due to me. So, I mean, I sat down, I just did it for like I've got 3 sections. Right now, there are 39 people that are going to be in budgeted production. And there are 3 sections, and I did one of them. I did the one that meets on Tuesday. So I did it. I don't know whether it went where it was supposed to or what it was doing, but with them,
we can look at that,
They really have got to have a schedule. Plus the fact that I'm trying to end up coming with some other resources or ideas of them as far as equipment's concerned, because the biggest thing I found that when they were doing the capstone was that because they were I had 44 of them, you know, and then we ended up shutting down. And then there was the thing of the equipment. They don't know it, but since I've kept all their questions they sent to me, I know who has good editing systems. I know who has, you know, good cameras. And with budgeted, they end up doing it for a nonprofit organization. And I put like 4 to 5 together. And so I'm also in the process of like talking to people to find out if they need to end up having something done. Then I present that to the students. And so far, knock on wood, I've been very lucky, because the fact that then if I can put them together so they don't end up having to be such a heavy burden on the equipment at the school, then that's what I've got to do. That's the reason why I'm trying to get them started now.
Okay.
But they definitely need deadlines, especially with video, because face it, even out there in the field, I mean, they have to have deadlines. I mean, it can't be the fact that I'm sorry, I didn't get it done today, I'll get it done tomorrow. I'm sorry, because tomorrow morning it airs, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I think I saw Kara getting ready to say something about math.
I don't organize even my regular class by weeks. I organize by major topics, and there are a lot less than 15 topics, major chunks. So in, let's say college algebra, I always had four major modules. And of course I didn't have to have videos and all sorts of things inside Brightspace at that point. But I've never had 16 modules, never.
Same. Yeah, I did the same thing, Kara. I've had Brightspace all along, and I've always had the 4 major papers that my students write. But I've also always had a schedule of assignments that did break things down day by day. And so now I'm thinking, okay, that should now, I guess, be moved. It shouldn't just be a sheet of paper, I mean, or a file that they access. It should be somehow integrated into the Brightspace course. And I'm taking a course now this summer from a colleague. And it's very helpful. Every Sunday she releases everything I have to do that week. And it's very straightforward, and I know exactly what I have to do and what closes when. And so that's been helpful. So I know having it integrated into Brightspace is really helpful, and I need to figure out how to do that.
the thing that I did was I took the, you know, over on the, God, it was on the right-hand side down below, it said like major things, like the dates that, your scripts are due by this date. But I mean, there were other things in between, but on those, I just put like the major dates of, your scripts are due here, you need to talk to the client by this point, you need to end up having, like your location shooting done by this point. It's like the major ones, but I mean, so I didn't put everything like over on that one side where it says a major, it says something about events. So I put those, the major dates of like when those were due also there, but I also put it on the calendar. So
Yeah, Miss
What-
Kathleen.
My modules are looking like a lesson plan. Is that what they're supposed to look like?
I think that there is no supposed.
Okay.
I think that there's only what you believe what would be the most helpful and the best way to communicate your meaning to your students. And I think however many teachers you would ask, that's how many opinions you would have about the right way of doing it. And I think that that's reasonable, because all of us, just like in person, when you walk into a classroom, you're going to present yourself and your organizational system differently from anybody else. For example, we have Kara for math and we have Julius for math, and I would bet money that they do it differently. Just because you share a subject doesn't mean that you have to lock yourself in. There are a few things that have been recommended, and I think Ines might be able to speak to it since she's taking the course. I keep putting you on the spot. You're welcome. But there are a few things that people have found helpful. Being able to manually check something when done often helps students pace themselves, because they're able to identify, I have finished this, I have not finished this. Adding due dates to assignments before those assignments go into your module helps students see, oh, this is due then, this is due then. The same thing with discussions. If you attach a due date, the course pings the students automatically with those due dates. Another thing that people have enjoyed, and I certainly love, is release conditions. Release conditions allow you to predicate the release of particular information on the availability of other information. So for example, my students cannot go into my module 2 until they've received a passing grade on the rough draft of their paper for module 1. And that prevents them from scooting all around and getting themselves into trouble before they really understand what they're supposed to do in the next bit of it. But really, I think it's very important that you allow yourself to do whatever works for you and your students. And if it looks a little different from other people's, then that's reasonable.
Okay, I teach applied music lessons, and so it is a little different from an English class or a math class. It's just one-on-one. So I just want to make sure I was heading in the right direction.
Does anybody have any advice for organizing those modules so they're right for students?
Depends on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've done it before, then you have an idea what it is and just how to get it out to them.
Inez put in the comments, if students set up notifications, then it pings them when something is due. I do want to say that you can set up the front page of your course in such a way that it makes a little list of the upcoming events. And that helps because at least when they log on to the course, they see it. So small favors. You can also require them to set up notifications and prove it to you with a screenshot of their phone.
I thought you meant ping on the phone. That's why I said if they set up the notification.
Right. So I find that I've been making it a grade to show me a screenshot of a device that has received a notification from my course. Because I am sick of reminding people I'm not their mother. I don't need to be chasing them down with this stuff. Let the computer chase them. But thank you for that question. I wanted to pick on Julia since you're also doing math. How are you organizing yours?
Well, I also do it according to the chapters. My modules are according to the chapters I have to cover instead of the week. Though in this assignment, I set it up as a 15-week, but trying to fit everything according to the 15-week is much harder than trying to fit it according to the chapters. So I wasn't sure whether we needed to stick to the 15-week or just go with what we are comfortable with and what will work for us. But like you said, I think it will depend from one person to another and from department to department.
And I would say, as the person who's most likely to be grading you, I would say that it's okay to organize it in whatever way you want, as long as I can see how it will fit into the 15 weeks. So if you just tell me I have 3 modules, I have no idea when they'll happen, I will just fly by the seat of my pants, I'm gonna get very uncomfortable. But if I can see how your modules map onto the length of the semester that's available to you, maybe because you have assignments that are coming due at specific times, like Ella mentioned, that there are certain due dates you just can't escape. Maybe because you explain to the students in the description how the modules map onto the chronological running of the course. It doesn't have to be more than a sentence or 2. For example, I divide my course into 4 modules like Inez does with my 4 major essays, but I tell my students that the way you pace yourself through the course is by the assignment due dates. And when you see the final essay due date for each module, that's your way of knowing that you're transitioning to the next module at that time. So as long as it's clear from what you're presenting to students how the chronological semester will unfold, your organizational system is your own, and we wouldn't presume to tell you what to do.
Can I stick in something that went with something a while back? Most of us will design our page on a desktop or a laptop or something that has lots of visual space, it looks completely different on your phone. And that's the way that a lot of your students will be accessing things. So if you use the main setup that they have, they might have a big wide thing, and then they have two little columns here, and then sometimes they have the different arrangements of the widgets on their home pages. The order of those is very different because there is no side-by-side on the phone. It does them all in one column. So I just highly recommend that if you are, while you're starting early now, think about how those things are placed on your main page when you do that, because that was something that was very different to me. Like the PACE thing today that I tried to go look at the schedule, it's 4 columns, and there's literally on the phone, there's 4 columns, and all the stuff is in this column. So there's like a word, a word, a word, a word, a word. And I could not even look at the schedule to figure out when I was going to go to what stuff today. And our pages are like that for our students. So just be prepared.
I completely agree. Thank you for bringing it up, Kara. And you can go on your phone and go to your class and just see what all it looks like when you've put a couple of things together. And you can actually go to student view and view it as a student would view it, and you will see exactly what a student will see, modify it, and look again. So it's definitely a good idea to see what they'll be finding. A lot of our students are accessing it on iPads, on phones, on Chromebooks, on goodness knows what. At this point, it's scrying crystals. So you really do, I think Kara's so right, need to make sure that whatever it looks like to you, it's also meaningfully organized for people accessing it in a different way. Okay. Oh, I see Angela has been able to join us. Hi. I haven't met Tim yet. Tell us something about what's going on with you in this class. Totally on the spot. You're welcome.
It's all right. I'm used to it. I have already taught one class online, actually just finished yesterday. So I teach Spanish. I'm an adjunct. I've been here off and on since 2003. I've been resisting the online teaching for a long time, but now it looks like it's inevitable. So I'm trying to embrace it. And I haven't even started on the assignment you all are talking about. I decided to wait till after this meeting to see what input I got before I did. I've done the stuff that's due tomorrow, but not the stuff that's due Friday.
That's great. One thing I want to, I think one of the greatest benefit of this class is not actually me or Trish, knowledgeable as Trish is, but I think the greatest asset is each other, because you can talk to each other on the forums. You can, if you like, look each other up on Teams or email each other. So if you know that you have somebody you met in the course who is struggling with a similar thing, or who already has a solution for whatever it is you're doing, I think the best way to figure this stuff out, everything I know about Word, Kara taught me. Everything I know about Brightspace, Ines taught me, right? And so I think it's fantastic to find the people who have ideas or who can look at our stuff and just say like, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I show you what I'm doing? Can we have coffee on Teams or, cocktails or whatever it is that makes this bearable? And let's figure it out how to do whatever it is you're trying to do. I've been asking people really obnoxiously for tours of their classes. So I've been asking people, could I just look at your class? Can I come over and screen share and you just show me what you're doing? And I've stolen so many fantastic ideas because people are geniuses. I mean, people are solving issues in ways that I would never even have begun to think about. And so, if you make a friend today on the course, you could ask them like, hey, tomorrow, can I virtually come over and you give me a tour of whatever it is you're doing, and I'll give you a tour of whatever it is I'm doing, and maybe we'll trade ideas or something like that. And you know, Brightspace can get dull if you use it over and over again, and then you find a new friend who's doing it in a completely amazing, fresh way, and you steal all their stuff, and all of a sudden it's fresh. Any other thoughts or questions?
This is going backwards a little bit, but speaking of putting people in our Brightspace courses in the sandbox, so because that's where we're creating everything. So should we put you in there so you can see what so when we say we did it, you're just taking our word for it?
Right.
Okay.
So we're colleagues, right? I'm not your boss. I am not your supervisor. I am a colleague trying to push my colleagues to just think about the fall in the most useful way that we know how. But ultimately, I mean, if I tell you do XYZ and you don't like it, you'll just delete it when I leave, right? So forcing somebody to do something they weren't ever going to do is counterproductive. And we really aren't looking to oversee your final product. We are looking to ask you, have you done it? Have you thought about it? Have you talked to someone about it? If you want to add us to your sandbox, feel free. But I think if I get added to 60 sandboxes, Royce will finally have that heart attack he's been looking forward to. I couldn't possibly visit every one of 60 with all possible affection for everyone on the course. If there's something specific you want me to look at, I'll be delighted. And if you want to look at something of mine, I'm more than happy to share. But I think your best resources really are each other. And especially since we're all specialists in our own areas, for me to tell Kara or Julius how to teach math, or to tell Dwayna how to teach nursing would be absolutely silly. You know, I can just push you to think about how you get it organized, and then you tell me you did it, and I will say yay.
Well, how will you know if we did the modules? That because it didn't.
Tell me, and I'll believe you.
You'll just believe us.
Right, because ultimately, if you do it and then you hate it and then you delete it, I have no power over that. So you're my colleague. I trust you. I trust you to want to do the right thing for yourself and your students, right? Because that's why we're here. That's why you're here. That's why you're spending 2 weeks in the summer listening to me drone on, right? Is because you intend to do the right thing. So when you tell me you've done it, I believe you. All right. Are there any other thoughts or questions or anything else like that?
I'd like to go back to Kathleen's first question. Did you see my response, Kathleen, in the chat?
I see it now.
Okay, so basically, because I had the same thought, you know, because we have students who are brand new beginners to, you know, intermediate or whatever. I just kind of did a basic shell, like if this were I had a new student and this was everything I wanted them to do this semester, like if they were fantastic, we would go all the way through 1 octave scales, and just kind of set it up that way. But the same, you can kind of modify all the activities to whatever level. So, you know, if you want them to do some sort of report on their practice, or if they all have the same concert report due date, those kind of things, you could just modify per student. And some of the stuff I have, you know, at least for playing the piano, I have some resources of master classes that are recorded from concert pianists that I'm going to want anybody, I don't care if you're a beginner or an intermediate student, I want you to watch that because you can both learn something from that. So those kind of tasks you can create so that everybody can use it. I'm sure there's similar things in the vocal field.
Yeah, I did that. I posted some master classes for them to watch and some concerts for them to watch. And then write a paper about.
Right. So that's basically what I did, is I just formatted my schedule based on those things. And then knowing that when I'm working with an individual student, I'll modify it, you know, for each individual student based on their repertoire.
Right.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Hanson.
So I just finished this online training class, which was ironic because I finished it just before we were sent away, March 13th. Had no idea there was a pandemic coming. So in that course, we had to create, all of these things. Is that basically just the same thing we're doing in this constructing a course?
The specific thing that's very particular to this one is to make sure that whatever we're doing works in Brightspace, right? Because each learning management system is a little bit different.
Yeah, we did it in Brightspace.
So it might very well be that whatever you did translates one-to-one to whatever we're doing here. That's entirely possible. I don't know what the syllabus of that course was, but I wouldn't be surprised because these things do tend to repeat themselves. There are a few things that might be worth trying. One thing that works for many people is rather than creating videos by yourself, try to work with somebody. For example, I've been working with Karen Sorensen, our instructional designer, and she's been creating videos for me. So I send her a transcript and she animates it and sends it to me. I tell her what I like, what I don't like. She edits it and makes it fully accessible, and then I post that. It's a slightly longer process, but I can use it more times because it's not specific to any particular course, but more general to my practice overall. So at this point, we've generated about 6 videos over the course of about 8 months. So I'm finding that tremendously helpful because frankly, with my accent and my makeup-free mug, people might not love it so much. But the animated little figure is happy and speaks perfect English, and my students love her. And in collaboration, we've, I think, perfected a lot of the things that I would have done imperfectly. And then another thing that many people have suggested, actually Trish, who just showed up on Teams to remind me to tell you this, is that many people like to create a Google Doc and then upload it to multiple courses, because Google Docs, you can continue to edit even after they've been linked to your course. So if I create, for example, a description of an essay that I want my students to write, and then I want to modify that document, I can do so after I've already linked it to my course. And a lot of people are enjoying the flexibility of doing that.
Well, see, what I did over the summer was I didn't create a video, I created audios, and then I had links and all these things, and my students were telling me that they liked that because they could go run it backwards and forwards. And so do we have to create videos in these?
You absolutely do not. What you have to create is whatever you think will work best for your students in your subject, in your teaching methodology. The reason I like sometimes videos is because they are easy to host on YouTube. And so it's just a medium issue. You can put audio on YouTube, but it's harder for me to play with it. And I do like the adorable little figurine Karen has created for me, and the lady runs around, she's animated. The one thing I would say is whatever you create, make sure that it is fully accessible, and you don't have to do that by yourself. You can ask specialists at the college, Karen Sorensen being sort of the primary, but ask around, because it has to be, if it is audio, it has to be captioned. If it's an image, it has to be described. So it's very important that whatever it is you're putting into your course be accessible. Starting in the fall, we will be using a tool on Brightspace called Ally. Some of us are already piloting it with success of various kinds. But what it will do is tell you when something is not fully accessible and then how to modify it so it is. And our goal is that whatever you're putting into these courses that you're creating for the fall will be as accessible as possible. And
I was sure to make sure that what I was using that people were seeing was accessible. So I know that it was.
Yeah. And One thing that happened to a lot of people is when we transitioned from on ground to online, some of us had actual paper handouts, right? Those are not super accessible, especially not online. But of course, there are many readers. If you scan in a PDF, it can convert it to text and make it accessible. So that's something that is not a required part of this course, but it's something we encourage you to check out, is if you have items that are not accessible, what can you do to make them accessible for your fall students? And do ask for help. You don't have to do it all alone. All right, any other thoughts we should be thinking about? All right, well, given how long our day was with the conference, oh, my computer decided to go to sleep. That was inconvenient. Given how long all of our days were, I think we could probably thank each other for our attention at 8:41 at night. So I certainly want to thank you. I will be here again at 8 o'clock on Thursday, but Trish will be on her Zoom link tomorrow at 1 p.m. I really enjoyed the smaller format and the really friendly interaction on the evening ones. It's always lovely. Evenings are always great. So please come, bring your friends. One thing that I would encourage you to do is to message me, Trish, and each other in Teams, because what Trish and I have discovered is that Teams is probably the fastest way to communicate, right? Because with an email, you send it and you wait and it piles up behind the logjam of other emails on the other end. In the class, sometimes I'm logged in and checking what you've submitted and sometimes I'm not. But Teams is on my phone, so if you send me a message in Teams, it's like a text message and I can respond to you literally right then. So for example, Trish is now nagging me to remind you about Teams, and I see her talking at me in real time. In fact, I see the bubbles going, so she's gonna tell me again. I really want to encourage you to just, even if you want to find me and say hi, literally the word hi is more than enough, just so you know you can. But then the other thing I want to encourage you to do is find each other on Teams and say hi. And maybe say, let's exchange information. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we do music or math or nursing or whatever, because I think we really can be more of a support to each other than any one instructor can be to everyone.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I appreciate the support from a fellow Kate. All righty, in that case, I will say good night to everyone and thank you for coming at this ridiculous hour, and I hope to see you Thursday. And if not, enjoy Trisha's thing tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye, Kate. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, all.
Stay cool.